Hello, this is Arturelia Film Room Reviews. I'm Arturo, and today I'll be reviewing Come and See. I found out about this film from this guy. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to check out his YouTube page. But yeah, that's how I first found out about Come and See. It's actually a war film or a Holocaust film showing the evils that were carried out during World War II in Belarus. And yes, under the Nazis. And I will say this is actually a Soviet film. A Soviet film? Weren't they like bad? Didn't they destroy millions of people's lives? Evil.
What? Evil!
Okay, yeah, but I will tell you this though, this Soviet film, while I'm not really crazy about their type of films because of the propaganda they usually put out, most countries do that, but since the Soviet Union, yeah, they were bad, this director actually just showed the truth and the horrors of what Belarus went through during the war. So today I am going to be reviewing Come and See, 1985 film. Let's go. In 1943, we follow a young Belarusian boy who wants to join the partisans to fight the Germans as World War II rages on. But as he joins the group, he befriends a girl who is in camp. However, when the partisans go on a mission, the opportunity for him joining in on the mission is declined. The leader of the partisans group doesn't really want a young boy like him going to fight. So he is disappointed and wanders off, only to meet the girl again. But soon, shit happens. And we follow this boy through the 9 months of this film, as we see him change drastically due to witnessing the Holocaust and the horrors of war. Now, I'm going to tell you this. The soundtrack in this film is very unique, in a way. Like, how can I put it? It's like ambient sounds mixed in with music. I can say that the soundtrack has like this horror feel to it. Some scenes that play out, it feels like an uncertainty of the surroundings that the characters are at. And there is reasons for why the ambient sound is there, due to the main character. And it pretty much works for this film. It just makes you wonder how he's processing things. But for a World War II film, this is something different. And it really does feel like a horror film, just grainy. I mean, in some aspects it's not, but on the other hand, it kind of feels like it. But yeah, it does have that horror film from like the 1980s, but in a different style since this is a Russian film. But it's pretty unique. The quality, while grainy, gives off the horror feel, which actually does make it look pretty interesting. The editing in the film seems fine to me, but the one thing you may notice is the close-up shots of the characters' faces. When this happens, it has an interesting look where it only is focusing on their faces and the motion of their face and head. Like when they move, it just follows the motion of their head and face. Otherwise, the quality of the film isn't bad. It actually looks good. I mean, clone number 2, what do you have to say? Okay, I'll admit, the film looks pretty good with that 80s feel to it, horror-like style. Yeah, they did pretty good on this, but the Soviet Union were still evil, though. Okay, anyways, back to subject. As for my enjoyment of Come and See. So here's the thing, like I mentioned, I watched this video, which is how I found out about the film itself, because I never heard about it until, well, yeah, this year. I can say I saw the scenes, and yeah, he mentioned stuff about what happened, yada yada yada. So I knew what I was getting into when I started watching it. But what's interesting is that this film is drawn out throughout 9 months of the characters, life through that time period. I can say you can't expect getting into this and think it's going to be a typical war film, because it isn't. Yes, it is set during World War II, but it's nothing like a World War II film. This shows the darker side of humanity. It shows how things were rough for the Belarusians during the war and under Nazi occupation. And yes, this film has graphic to real footage of the Holocaust, which this film will disturb you or disturb others. Now for me, I don't know if something's wrong with me, but I've seen so many documentaries of World War II. I know everything, practically almost everything about World War II. I've seen so much raw footage of just the war that it seems like... Well, but the fact that I knew what I was getting into, I'm just going to say this film did not disturb me is where it might disturb others. And yeah, you could say that it would beat every other horror film because this stuff happened. This was real life things that happened that the Nazis did. But the fact that what you see at the end, the horrible atrocity carried out by the Nazis, this film shows, just the evils of human beings. I will say though, sometimes the actors, when they were playing their roles, or when they were playing a scene, some stuff kind of didn't click with me. Like when they would act at certain points, and I wondered why they were acting this or that way, or stuff. Especially at the scene where he was talking to the girl in the forest. Even at the beginning with the main character's mom, like, what? Why would you mention about killing her twin sister? What? But yeah, this film is... I would say it's interesting, but I don't think it would be for everyone. Come and see a World War II film that feels like a horror flick. While not a horror film, you could consider it a bit of a horror film, but that's up to your interpretation. I can consider it a bit of the horrors of the Holocaust. That's the scariest thing about the film. That stuff happened. Yeah, you could be afraid of, or you could be scared of the Halloween series, or at least the better ones, not the crappy ones. You could be afraid of Nightmare on Elm Street. You could be afraid of Jason, or, Friday the 13th. You could be afraid of all these classic horror films. Even though they're all made up. But Come and See shows the truth and the scary part about humanity. It's really hard for me to rate this film because I knew what I was getting into, so it did kind of affected how I was going to expect things going into it. So I think I would probably give it a 7 out of 10. It's good. But you have to be prepared for what is to come, because this film may not be for everyone because of the subject matter. It's more depressing than anything. Now, as for my recommendation for Holocaust films, well, there is this one. Though I have not seen this film, then there's obviously Schindler's List. Those are the two that I can think of as an alternative. There's obviously the Anne Frank TV show, or TV movie, which follows, the Holocaust. But, some of these subjects are pretty depressing, so may just be one watch. Some of these I haven't even seen. And the Holocaust stories aren't really my thing. The only thing that made this interesting for me to want to watch is because it does have the Holocaust element in it, but it mostly shows what the partisans are doing during the war. So, it doesn't overly focus on what goes on in the camps. It mostly focuses on what the Nazis did when they came to certain places. That's what mostly the Holocaust was. Well, the other side of the Holocaust. Well, this is Arturelia Film Room Review signing off.